I'm going to move on to deputations. We have Tamika and Daniel to speak to the Springwood Estate matter. Welcome, Tamika and Daniel.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, Chief Executive Officer, councillors and council staff. My name is Tamika Townsend and this is my fiancé, Daniel Juckes. I'd like to clarify that we are representing the large group of members that we've built on Messenger of affected Springwood buyers that's now at 64 members. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to speak this evening on behalf of ourselves and 100 other purchasers whose contracts for Springwood Stages 8 and 9 in Gawler East were cancelled after 4 years of waiting for land we believed would become our homes. Before I begin, I would like to ask something. If you are here tonight because you or your family have been directly affected by the cancellation of your Springwood contract, would you please stand or raise your hand and make yourself known? Thank you. Councillors, the people standing before you represent only some of the more than 100 affected purchasers. Many others wanted to be here but were unable. These aren't just numbers, they are first home buyers, young families, retirees and hard-working South Australians who spent years saving, planning and making life decisions based on the expectation that they would one day call Springwood home. Wellco, the developer, says these cancellations were necessary because of government infrastructure changes. The state government and the town of Gawler have publicly rejected that explanation. That leaves more than 100 families caught between two very different stories, still waiting for someone to simply tell us the truth. Firstly, we would like to sincerely thank the town of Gawler. From the moment these cancellations became public, council has stood beside purchasers. Your public statements, your willingness to ask difficult questions and your advocacy within state government have given families hope during an incredibly difficult time. We genuinely appreciate everything you have done. We entered into our contracts in good faith and accepted years of delays because we believed the development would eventually proceed. Instead, after almost 4 years, our contracts were cancelled, leaving more than 100 families not just without land, but without the future we had spent years planning and working towards. Tonight is more than our own circumstances. It's about confidence. Confidence that when families invest hundreds of thousands of dollars, they can trust they will be treated fairly and honestly, and confidence that Gawler remains a place where people can safely invest, build homes and raise their families. The question many purchasers are now asking is what happens next. We understand there are limits to council's powers and that the Consumer and Business Services investigation is continuing. We are not asking council to solve this matter alone. What we're asking for is your continued leadership and advocacy, and we're asking council for 3 clear, time-bound commitments. First, to provide a publicly tabled written response to the questions raised tonight, and thank you for answering some of those already, within 14 days. Second, a formal letter from council to the Minister and Wellco within 14 days seeking a written explanation on the public record for why all 100 allotments were cancelled, rather than only those genuinely affected by any infrastructure changes, and provide that letter to purchasers. Third, a public position from council on whether it will oppose these allotments being resold or rezoned at today's higher prices without conditions protecting purchasers and future residents. We would appreciate council's response to the following questions, and I'll skip some of them because they've already been answered. Does council believe a negotiated outcome remains possible, including reinstating purchases or achieving another fair resolution? Has Wellco provided council with any revised engineering or division plans or other evidence showing that stages 8 and 9 cannot proceed as currently approved? What role will council continue to play? That one was answered, sorry. Are there any further actions purchasers can take? We've talked about that one. If the contracts are reinstated, which as you know is what we are all very much hoping and praying they will, knowing that this may happen, how can Council ensure that the title of the blocks is undertaken in a reasonable time frame, considering we have already been waiting 4 years? How will Council continue protecting residents and future ratepayers of Gawler by promoting transparency, accountability and good faith from all future developers operating within the town of Gawler? As elected representatives, your voice carries weight. The way this matter is handled will influence public confidence in Gawler as a place where families choose to invest, build homes and establish their future. And how the Council responds to what we're asking tonight will be part of how that confidence is judged. As you look around this room tonight, please remember that behind every person here are many more families watching with hope that their elected representatives will continue standing behind them, and they will be watching for the Council's written response. On behalf of ourselves and every affected purchaser, thank you for your continued support and advocacy. We respectfully ask that you continue using your voice to seek transparency, accountability and a fair resolution, and that these commitments be put in writing. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. I know it's sometimes not easy to speak, and the fact that you're advocating and bringing people that are going through this together is a credit to yourself and the community that is getting behind you. Thank you very much for it, because I know I've been talking to a few of you since all this has happened, and some of that information and some of those stories have been raw, but those stories have empowered us with some of the confidence that we need, because we agree there are people behind these decisions, and we are trying to understand why those decisions are made and what avenues we have to maybe reverse those decisions. Mr. CEO, I think there were some requests there. Are you able to just provide a little bit of feedback?
Yeah, certainly. There was a lot of additional questions. Are you able to leave that with Susie on the way out? So my commitment is absolutely, I'll provide responses in writing. So I'll commit to that. Just a couple of key points I gleaned that I just want to give a little bit of immediate feedback on. The reinstatement of contracts possibility. And again, I don't want to speak for Wellco, but I'd like to think that is something that's on the table, and I'd like to think that that will be something that's presented to people tomorrow if Wellco have those conversations as they said they were going to. Honestly, my concern is about the time frame. I'm just speaking openly. It might be that the contracts are reinstated, but maybe there's a delayed delivery. And I can't comment on that. I guess we need to see what the offering is. But I do genuinely believe, I'd like to think that's on the table, that's coming to you, but it's what are the caveats around that I think you'll need to have a few further discussion on, and perhaps another discussion with myself once we understand what that looks like. In terms of the plans, there's been no formally lodged alternate plans around lots 8 and 9 at this stage. We're simply working with the current plans that were on the table just prior to contracts being cancelled. And I've got a third dot point here. I can't read my own writing. But it was around reinstatement, and I think I've touched on it. The key piece here is the timeliness of delivery. And I'm reasonably assured that James would have had these conversations into the government so they can relay these thoughts should a proposal have been presented to them as a bunch of offerings that the Wellco will make. It will be one thing to reinstate, but the hope is that they can reinstate and assure a reasonable, timely delivery. So that's what I'd be advocating for. But again, let's wait to see what that final offering is. Once we know what it is, and then we've got the facts to understand what our future approach needs to be. And let's keep pushing together to get a good outcome. Okay. Thanks, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, CEO. And just one last point to add as well, and I think you touched on it really well, Tamika, about the line of sight of the message this sends if this contract withdrawal is just embedded, and the message that actually sends the development industry, the construction industry as a whole, in a super heightened space while we're trying to get housing online and the like. And for a developer to be able to do this and stick to it, I think is something that's really intimidating, not only to those that are affected right now, but those that could be affected in the future as well, if this becomes one of those levers that can be pulled at any time. So absolutely get the sentiment there, and certainly it's front of mind for us as well. Mr. CEO, did you have? Now I can read your writing, I assume.
No, and I need for jogging my memory on what I was supposed to do. I'm reasonably assured that little piece that the Mayor was just talking about, the state government, that's one of their key considerations they're working through from a legislative perspective. Again, haven't seen what there's proposed, but I know that was one of the key factors that the state are looking at, because the state the state in combination with people that are putting money for these blocks of land and building their hopes and dreams, they are looking to give future assurity people so they can have confidence when they make these investments. So, but again, the Mayor and I and the Council as a whole will certainly continue to advocate in this space. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Mr. CEO, and those in the gallery that came along to present and also support those presenting. Thank you very much once again. We're going to move on with the agenda as it sits. Firstly, though, it was remiss of me. Elected members, did you have any further questions that you might want to ask, given the presenters at this point in time? There be none, I'm going to move through. Okay, thank you very much, everybody. Working through adjourned items, we have nil. Petitions, we have nil. Looking for